As I get older, the more I want to look back. Why? I don't know, but when I look back at the beginning of my interest in nerdy things, one of the most early things that influenced me was Ben 10. Growing up, there was a lot of shows and cartoons I would enjoy, but this one really caught my eye, and it was the original Ben 10 series. When I tell you I loved this show, I mean I loved this show. So much, in fact, that at one point I had all the toys of all the aliens. I memorized every alien's name. I had a toy of the Omnitrix that I would wear all the time and slam it down and yell out Heat Blast and then just, slap it down like Ben does. I played all the games. I know the theme song bar for bar, okay? I can recite that thing more than I can recite Pythagorean theorem, okay? So it's pretty, huge. And when I was a little kid and I had to do something, I would pretend to turn into the best alien suited for that situation. So like if my mom was like, "Hey, pick up your clothes," I'd be like, "Accelerate," and then I'd accelerate and go fast and pick up all my clothes. So I loved the show. But back then, when you asked me as a kid why I watched it and loved it so much, I probably would just give you the answer of the aliens were awesome and I loved the action and I thought that the whole thing was just super cool. And yeah, I mean, it is cool. It's awesome. Ben 10's sick. Now that I look back at it, it's one of those shows I realized had a lot more influence on me than I originally thought. And also, the reason I enjoyed it so much was because it was one of the first kid shows that didn't speak down to me. There's so many lessons I learned throughout this show, and one of the major ones I feel like I personally took away from this show was the lesson of responsibility. Throughout the show, we see Ben goof around with the Omnitrix. He pranks Gwen. He just goofs around, turns into aliens time to time, doing things. One time, he became a wrestler with forearms because he wanted to make money to get more sumo slammer cards. And if you watch Ben 10, bro was not serious with the Omnitrix. But what made it interesting is that over the period of the show, Ben began to become more and more responsible, and as he got more responsible, the show very much so escalated to bigger threats and bigger stakes. The start of the show is very episodic. Every episode has your typical villain of the week and a simple lesson. Maybe one episode Ben's greedy, so by the end of the episode he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to be greedy anymore." Or like at the beginning of the episode Ben's like, "Oh, I really want this thing," and then by the end he gets it, and then he's like, "Well, this kid, needs it more than I do," etc. But like I said, as the show goes on more and more, the threats become more dangerous. And over the series, he begins to learn the Omnitrix more and more, and he begins to use it more wisely. And every episode, he begins to learn a lesson, and the villains begin to build off of each other and become more dangerous, teaming up, doing things, learning things. This whole show was just building on top of each other, and therefore, it became a necessity for Ben to be more serious and learn to understand his responsibility as the user of the Omnitrix. But there was a very crucial episode for me that I enjoyed so much because of its cool concepts as a kid. But now that I'm a little bit older, I realize that there's a lot more to this episode that is very much more impactful to me. And that episode would be Ben 10,000. In this episode, we see a future Gwen go back in time to pick up a younger Ben, and the reason throughout the episode is unclear. All Gwen just keeps saying is that Ben is required in order to help the future Ben. So, young Ben's like, okay, so it's probably some huge threat. And so Ben tries to help older Ben, and older Ben throughout the whole episode is a jerk. He's constantly being mean to Gwen, older Gwen, and he's constantly being mean to the younger version of Ben, and he just doesn't stop to really talk to anybody. And we find out that this older Ben doesn't really need the help from anyone. Like, he doesn't need help from Gwen, he doesn't need help from Grandpa Max. He just has everybody out of his life, and he takes all this responsibility onto himself. And therefore, he becomes a jerk because he doesn't really talk to anybody else. He doesn't really need anybody else. So he's just constantly on the move. He never slows down. And that's the whole reason why the older Gwen went back in time and got younger Ben, because this older Ben is just a jerk. He's just a jerk, and he distanced himself from everyone, and he just needed somebody to wake him up and kind of give him there's this reminder of who he used to be. And that's the reason why young Ben's there. And the whole point of this episode is for the young Ben to remind Ben 10,000 that he used to be so joyful. He used to be so fun. He used to rely on his grandpa. He used to rely on Gwen, and he got help from other people. He didn't just rely on himself, and that the most important thing is to never ever lose yourself. No matter how big the responsibilities come, don't ever lose who you are. And as a kid, I really thought nothing of this message. I just, thought it was cool that we got to see future Ben and new aliens. But as an adult, this kind of hit me differently. For me personally, I've never really been satisfied with my progress. It's hard for me to look at my own success. I never feel like I'm doing enough, and I always feel like I'm catching up. But like, to what? I don't know who I'm catching up to. I don't know what I'm catching up to. But I always just have this feeling of being behind. I never feel like I'm doing enough. And it's hard to slow down sometimes and enjoy the small moments. Sometimes it's hard to just slow down and just appreciate the people around me and appreciate the things that I have right now. Like Ben, we have such joy as a child. We often look back at our childhood and go, man, like things were so much easier back then. Things were so much simpler back then. Like I didn't know how good I had it. And we slowly take on more and more responsibilities, which is good. It's not a problem to take on responsibilities. But what it is when the responsibilities consume us. We just keep going and going and going, and we don't really know what we are going towards. We're just doing this all in the name of responsibility, all in the name of being seen as an adult. We begin to bury our feelings and our emotions in the name of, being mature, and we become these machines with one sole purpose. And this overwhelming feeling of this adulthood image, or, choosing something, and that's our life. Like we do work or school, or we have these responsibilities. And I'm not saying these responsibilities are wrong. What I'm saying is wrong is when we begin to lose ourselves, when we begin to push people away around us because we are so one-track minded. We lose out on the happy things, the simple things that used to make us excited, and just that brought us joy and everything like that. It's okay to be serious. It's okay to work hard, but not if it costs you yourself. I know I'm just talking about the original Ben 10 series here, but later on in Omniverse and Alien Force, we get to see different versions of Ben 10,000. We don't see that same one that we saw in the original series. And in these different versions, the older Ben acts more like his younger self, not only having a network of people around him to help him, but he also works with the plumbers. He works with Grandpa Max still. He still works with his cousin. And this is just awesome. I like to believe that the reason why these Bens changed is because, the whole time travel shenanigans. Younger Ben got to see what he would be like if he just got consumed by his responsibility, that he decided that he's still going to be himself and be responsible, which it's possible to do that. And this whole episode, this whole thought of mine made me think about, what would my younger version say about me right now? Would he be proud? Would he think I'm a jerk? Would he have wished that we have done things a little differently? Would he be sad that I'm being so mean on myself? Like I'm just so harsh on who I am right now, even though I've come so far. And for me, I think my younger self would be proud of how far I've come. He'd be proud of the progress, the direction I'm going in, that I'm still on the right track. And I need to remind myself of that. I need to sometimes not get so caught up in what is happening right now that I lose track of how far I've come, the progress I have. And I just need to remind myself that, work, school, all these things, it's important, but I should never ever lose myself in exchange for just being better at those things. And if you're sitting there right now and you're thinking to yourself, like, my younger self would absolutely hate who I am right now, or my younger self would not be proud, it's never too late to change. It's never too late to appreciate the people around you. It's never too late to open up to other people. It's never too late to chase after your dreams. You have to just go after it. You have to enjoy these moments, enjoy the day, enjoy who you are. And if you don't like who you are today, you can do that. You can go towards the direction you want to go. Something that I constantly keep in the back of my mind is that it's good to have progress, but what's the point of all this progress if when I get to where I want to be, I'm lost? I don't know who I am. I feel sad. I feel horrible. I feel miserable. And it's weird that you can take this away from Ben 10, but I've been rewatching the series, and I don't know, that really caught my attention, the Ben 10,000 episode. And it's true that Ben goes from just being this little kid to this hero, and it's just really important for us not to lose ourselves. And it's kind of weird that in order for me to learn this lesson again, I had to go back to something that I love from my childhood and learn that lesson. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. This one was just kind of a fun one. I've been reading so much comic books. Like, you guys don't understand how much I read for these videos. Like, every time I read a video, I got a comment the other day that was like, I can tell you never read the comics. I'm like, I wish I didn't read like 20,000 volumes of The Incredible Hulk, or I wish I wasn't reading like every storyline of the Green Lantern or Spawn. But I really do want to dive into these characters. I really want to make these videos something worth watching. So thank you guys so much. I hope you guys did enjoy the Ben 10 video. And before I go, let me just tell you some of my favorite Ben 10 aliens from the original series. There is no particular order. These are just some of the ones that I just loved. And I know it's going to sound like a lot, but I just love these ones. Four-Arms, Diamond Head, Heat Blast, Upchuck, Way Big, Eye Guy, and Accelerate. I also did really like honorable mentions, Cannonball and Wildvine. Those were sick. I loved those ones. Yeah.